White paper. Windowed. Return address said, Family Court, without the crest, or the Latin words that make bad news feel official. I stood at the kitchen counter and opened it with the butter knife because the letter opener was still in the box from the apartment. New places don't have drawers for old tools. They have boxes. The order used phrases that don't blink. Temporary modification. Stability concerns. Income irregularities. A hearing date circled in somebody else's blue pen, like the mailman had decided to help ruin my morning. I read the first page twice, then the last page, then the page in the middle where it said, my time with my daughter would be reduced to every other weekend until conditions are clarified. Conditions. I sat down. My daughter's crayon drawings were still on the fridge with tape because I hadn't bought magnets yet. A sun with too many lines, a house with a door too big, a figure with a beard, that was me. Holding a stick figure with messy hair, that was her. Underneath, in careful block letters, Dad plus me. I put the letter under the drawing so I didn't have to look at it. The tape gave up and the page slid down slow. Gravity is patient. When I called my ex, she didn't sound surprised. It's just until you stabilize, she said. I am stable. You moved into a one-bedroom. It's two, I said. It's just shaped funny. You changed jobs. I didn't change jobs, I said. I changed shifts. You didn't tell me. You don't ask. Her voice softened like she was being recorded. Let's not fight. This is about her schedule. Say her name, I said. She didn't. That hearing will move fast, she said instead. If you cooperate, they'll give you more time in the summer. Cooperate with what? The process. She hung up before I could remember how to breathe. I put the phone down face up so the screen could watch me not call anyone else. I work nights now, not by choice. Overtime dried up, days got thin, and the manager asked who could do evenings. I raised my hand for the hours I didn't want because you pick the small battles you can win and save the big ones for court. I keep my schedule in a notebook. Paper. Blue cover. I write my shifts in fat pen and my daughter's days in a different color. It's not art. It just keeps me honest. I opened it and flipped to the week of the hearing. I wrote one word at the top. File. I don't shout. I don't drink. I don't disappear. I build. The first piece went in that night before my shift. Pay stubs. I printed the last 12. The printer coughed once and decided to work. Dates, totals, taxes taken. No gaps. I put them in a clear sleeve like a school project. Second piece, lease. The apartment contract, both pages and the addendum where I paid for the second parking spot I don't use because I don't have 2 cars. It says 2 bedrooms in clean type. I underlined it with a ruler because I wanted the line to be straighter than my life. Third, bank statements. I printed 3 months, all pages, even the blank one that says, this page intentionally left blank. I circled rent, utilities, groceries. The transfer to the savings account I named with my daughter's initials when I thought names could keep money from moving. Fourth, calendar. I printed the messages from the parenting app they make you use, so every okay and I'll be 10 minutes late goes into an archive nobody wants to read until they want to win. I highlighted the pickups I made on time, and the ones she changed last minute with a shrug. Fifth, photos. Not the cute ones. The ordinary ones. Shoes lined up, her jacket on the hook she can reach, the extra toothbrush in the blue cup, the step stool by the sink so she can wash her hands without me lifting her every time. Small things courts say they care about and then forget until the paper reminds them. Sixth, school. I emailed the teacher and asked if she could write a neutral note about attendance, homework, how our daughter handles the week changes. Neutral is a magic word. Teachers are tired of being asked to pick teams. She wrote back 2 lines that sound like a hymn if you're a father in a kitchen at midnight. She appears well adjusted. She's happy to leave with either parent. I printed that. I put it at the front. A cover page that tells the truth before the noise. By morning, the file had weight. I slid it into a cheap binder. I wrote custody file on the spine in block letters that looked like someone else's. At work, the machines hummed and the same 3 songs played in the tinny radio until I forgot which one was on. I clocked out at 1 a.m., sat in my car, and wrote down every date my ex had switched out a day for convenience. I checked them against the app, against the calendar, against my memory. Paper beats memory, but memory tells you where to look. When the list was done, I felt less like a person and more like a clerk. That helped. I called her the next day. "Who wrote the declaration?" I asked. "My attorney's office," she said. She said attorney like I had to admire the syllables. "It says I have irregular income. You changed shifts." "That's not irregular." "It looks irregular," she said. "Courts care how things look." "Courts care what you show them," I said. She went quiet. Then, "Please, let's not do this ugly." "I'm not doing anything ugly," I said. "I'm writing." 2 days later, a second envelope, same crest, different tone, a copy of the declaration she filed. It used words like concerns and instability and reportedly. It said I frequently work nights, as if frequent meant always, and work nights meant slept in a ditch. It said my apartment appears small and may not have a suitable sleeping area for a child. It said she has been the primary caregiver since birth, which is a phrase that erases the years I made breakfast and packed lunches and learned how to fish peanut butter out of hair without starting a fight. At the end, in a paragraph that pretended to be concerned about me, it suggested a schedule until father's situation stabilizes. That part had a smile in it I could feel through the ink. I read it standing up. If you sit to read something like that, it feels like you're agreeing. Then I put it under the teacher's note and closed the binder. The first hearing was short. They always are. The judge looked at the calendar more than at faces. He wore the expression of a man who had run out of adjectives 20 years ago and now communicated with eyebrows. He asked my ex's attorney to summarize. A woman in a neat suit read the declaration in a voice that sounded like nothing. My ex stared at the table. I stared at her hand. The ring was gone. The small white line where it used to sit was not. When it was my turn, I stood and held the file like a life jacket. I said I had pay stubs. I said I had a lease. I said I had a room with a second bed and a step stool and a sticker chart. I said my shifts were consistent and that the switch had been a month ago, and that I had email from my supervisor confirming I'd requested weekends off on my parenting weeks. The judge raised one eyebrow. The clerk took my documents like you hand a lunch across a counter. The judge said he would take the matter under advisement and set a review date. He left the temporary order in place. I had every other weekend and one dinner a week that felt like a mercy wrapped around a punishment. In the hallway, my ex said, "We can work this out." "Say her name," I said. She didn't. The first weekend without my daughter stretched like rubber. I cleaned things that were already clean. I went to the park and sat on the bench where I usually watched her go down the slide and pretended I was there for fresh air. A father pushed a stroller, checked his phone, laughed at something. I hated him for a second, then didn't. At night, I called my daughter to say goodnight. We talked about her stuffed rabbit and how its ear was coming loose and how I would fix it. She asked if I was coming Wednesday. I said yes. My ex took the phone and said, "Say goodnight." She did. I held the phone after the line went dead because it still felt warm. Building helps. I built. I pulled my bank statements again and made a spreadsheet because some people trust color-coded boxes more than lines with circles. I logged my rent payments, the utilities, the grocery store, the school supplies. I added the line where I bought a second bed. I left the line where I bought the step stool. I printed it. I called my supervisor and asked if he could write a letter on company letterhead confirming my schedule. He said, "We don't do that." I said, "Can you write an email?" He said, "I can write an email." He wrote 3 lines. "Michael works nights by choice for coverage. His schedule is consistent. He requests specific days off for his parenting time, and we honor them when possible." I printed that. I asked my neighbor to write a note saying he hears us on the weeks we have the child, and that things are quiet by 9, because bedtime is a rule. He wrote 2 sentences. I printed those too. I took photos of the second bed. I took one of the closet I built out of 2 rails and one of those shelves you put together with a rubber mallet. I took a photo of the calendar on the wall with her name and stickers and the week colored in green for Dad's house. I did not take a photo of my face because my face looked like a person learning how to smile at court officers. A week before the review date, something small cracked. I got a message through the parenting app from my ex. "She's sick. Keep your distance this week. No details, no photo, just that." I answered, "Please send a note from the clinic. I'll move dinner to Friday." She wrote nothing. Friday came. I waited at the spot. It's a strip of curb outside a grocery store where people exchange kids and bags and words like they're handing over dry cleaning. She didn't come. On the app, "Still sick? Don't push." I wrote, "Please offer a makeup day." She wrote nothing. I didn't yell. I printed the messages. I put them under a tab named interference. I do not like that word. It is a radio word. But it is the word the court understands. The review hearing was on a Thursday morning. Gray light. The kind of day that doesn't pretend to be anything else. The judge had the same eyebrows. My ex's attorney had a thicker folder. So did I. The judge started with the calendar. He asked about my shift. I handed him the email. He read it. He peered over the paper at me like I had surprised him by doing homework. He asked about the apartment. I handed him the lease and the photos. He asked about the sick week. I handed him the app printouts. He asked if makeup days had been offered. I said no. He wrote something down that looked like a check mark and a dash. My ex's attorney said I was litigious. I said I was prepared. The judge's eyebrow went up again, that tiny curl of amusement you don't expect from a man who reads misery for a living. Then he asked a question nobody expects and everyone secretly waits for. "Do you have anything from the school?" "Yes," I said, and handed him the teacher's note. He read it like people read recipes when they're already cooking. He put it on the stack to his right. The right stack is where papers go to matter. He didn't change the order that day. Courts don't like to look like they were wrong last time. But he set a longer hearing for 6 weeks out and used a phrase I clung to when I fell asleep sitting up on my couch that night. Evidence-based review. I made a list on a napkin of what evidence might mean. I wrote, taxes. Tax time is a mean teacher. It makes you find papers you swore you'd file last year. I filed early that year. I did it sitting at the kitchen table with the blue notebook open and the binder next to me. My return was unremarkable. The numbers lined up. The direct deposit came 2 weeks later, and I printed the page that proved, I don't make the kind of money that buys boats or second chances. I put it in the file. I asked the landlord if he could write a letter about me paying on time. He said, "You always pay on time," like that was a surprise to him. He wrote a line. I printed it. I asked the after-school coordinator to email me about pickup consistency. She did. I printed that too. I started recording our exchanges. Not audio. I wrote down the time she arrived and whether she sent our daughter with a coat or without, with homework or without, with a snack or without. Because details tell a story people can't argue with. 2 times in those weeks, she was late more than 15 minutes. One time she texted, running behind, and the other she didn't. I wrote that down and did not write the thoughts that tried to spread into my hand. When our daughter was with me, I made dinner at 6 and read the same book 3 times, because she wanted to hear the cat find the ball every time. When she asked me if I was mad, I said no. When she asked me if I was sad, I said sometimes, and told her it wasn't her job. Then I fixed the rabbit's ear with small stitches and made it uglier and stronger. 2 weeks before the long hearing, her attorney filed a packet. Inside was a declaration that said I had declined to communicate and escalated by involving third parties. It said the neighbor's note was biased. It said I had weaponized the parenting app. It said the teacher's letter was generic and not conclusive. I read it and laughed once, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. It said nothing about the missed dinner. It said nothing about makeup days. It said nothing about the bed. I added a new tab to the binder, patterns. Under it, I put 3 months of messages arranged by subject line, a stack for schedule, a stack for medical, a stack for changes requested. The medical stack had 2 messages. The schedule stack was fat. I put it on the right side. The morning of the long hearing, I wore the only shirt I own that forgives my shoulders for being from work. I shaved, because stubble gives people the story they came to tell. I brought the binder and a copy for the other side, because if you walk in with 1 binder, people think you want to hide something. If you walk in with 2, they think you've already decided to share. We sat on opposite sides. She didn't look at me. I didn't look at her. The room filled with the smell of old paper and the kind of perfume people wear to show they're fine. Her attorney went first. She spoke longer than the judge had patience for. She used the word primary caregiver like it was a magic charm. She used concerns like commas. She said I had recently altered employment and downsized. She said, "We are not trying to limit father's role out loud." I looked at the ceiling and counted the squares. The judge asked me to respond. I didn't tell a story. I handed him the binder. Tabs, I said. Income, housing, school, schedule, interference, patterns. He opened it. He looked at the labels. He started at school. He read the teacher's note again. He slid it to the right stack. He looked at income. He read the email from my supervisor, then the pay stubs. He put them on the right. He looked at housing. He saw the lease and the photos of the second bed and the step stool and the toothbrush in the blue cup. He put those on the right. He paused at interference. He read the messages about the sick week and the no makeup day. He asked her attorney why. She said something about doctor's orders. The judge asked for the note. There was no note. He wrote something down. He turned to patterns. He lifted the stack of messages and fanned them like playing cards. He read the top 3. He put the stack on the right and nodded to himself like a man who'd found his keys. "Any witnesses?" he asked. I said the neighbor was in the hall if the court wanted to ask about noise and bedtime. The judge said no. He said the court didn't doubt I could keep quiet. He said, and I heard it like a line in a play I had dreamed about, "This is an evidence-based hearing." Her attorney said I was using paperwork to disguise instability. The judge didn't look at her. He looked at me. "Why nights?" he asked. "Because I asked," I said. "Because they needed coverage." "Why not days?" he asked. "Because they didn't have them," I said. "Because I need the hours I can get. Because I like eating." He nodded. He looked at the calendar again. He took off his glasses and cleaned them with a cloth that had a logo from somewhere nobody remembers. He put them back on and said, "I'm revising the schedule." The room got heavier and lighter at the same time. He said my weeks with my daughter would be what they were before. He said school nights with me were fine. He said my apartment was adequate. No adjective, just the fact. He said makeup days are required when time is missed without a note. He said the parenting app is for scheduling, not for scoring points. He said any future modifications would require material change, not discomfort. He looked at me and said, "You've proven stability, Mr. Carter." He said my last name clean. He looked at her and said, "I expect cooperation. That means offers, not obstructions." He signed the order with a pen that had more ink than sympathy and handed it to the clerk. My ex's attorney said, "Your Honor." The judge lifted a hand without looking at her. "Enough," he said, and those 4 letters felt like a door locking. Outside in the hallway, my ex stood by the pillar and stared at the floor tiles like they might change if she memorized them. She didn't say, "we." She didn't say, "stability." She said finally, "I'm not the villain." "I didn't make you one," I said. "You made a binder." "I made a home," I said. She looked up then. Her eyes were wet in a way I recognized and hated recognizing. "I thought you'd roll over," she said. "I did," I said. "Right up to the line." We didn't hug. We didn't shake hands. We didn't promise to do better. We walked to opposite elevators and pressed down. I picked up our daughter that afternoon from school, with the order folded in my pocket like a pass back to a life. She ran to me with her backpack banging against her legs and said, "Rabbit's Ear is okay now, like that's what mattered." We went home. We made dinner, chicken in a pan, rice in a pot, broccoli that she promised she would try and then didn't. We read the book about the cat and the ball twice. I tucked her into the bed in the room that paperwork had to prove existed. She asked if I was mad. I said no. She asked if I was sad. I said not right now. She asked if I was staying. I said yes and turned on the little nightlight that makes the wall look like the moon. When she fell asleep, I sat on the floor next to the bed and leaned my head back against the wall and let the quiet do what quiet does. Untie knots without asking permission. The next morning, I took the binder and slid it onto a shelf above the washing machine. I labeled the spine with the month and the year because this isn't the last time a piece of paper will try to tell my story without me. I poured coffee into a mug with a crack in it and watched the steam rise. My phone buzzed with a message from the parenting app. It said, "Can we switch next Friday? She has a birthday party at my cousin's." I wrote, "Offer a makeup day." She wrote, "Sunday afternoon?" I wrote, "Accepted." It wasn't peace, it was process, it was enough. Sometimes people ask me if I hate her. I don't. Hate is loud and I need my ears. I don't love her either. Love is a word that doesn't fit in a binder. What I have is a file and a child and a room with a small bed and a step stool and a toothbrush in a blue cup. What I have is a date on a paper that says, "This week is mine." And next week I give her back. And then the week after that, I get her again. It's a rhythm. It's a life. On Sunday night, after I dropped my daughter off, I drove past the park and pulled over and sat for a minute. The sky was the color of a bruise that's starting to heal. I thought about the first envelope and how my hands shook. I thought about the judge saying, "evidence-based," like a person handing you a tool when you thought he'd hand you a sermon. I don't believe in miracles. I believe in receipts. I believe in a teacher's 2 lines and a supervisor's short email. I believe in a lease that says 2 bedrooms, and in a photograph of a step stool. I believe in my daughter's laugh when the cat finds the ball every time. The world doesn't cheer for this kind of justice. There's no music, no parade, just a stamp on an order and an extra night where you get to say, "Brush your teeth," and a small voice says, "I already did," and you still check because that's how stability works. I went home and set out 2 bowls for cereal in the morning. I folded the small pajamas with the stars. I stood in the doorway and looked at the bed that a paragraph had tried to erase. The nightlight made the wall look like the moon, and the bunny's ear held its ugly strong stitches like a medal. The house held steady. My hands did too. The binder on the shelf didn't glow or sing. It just existed, waiting, silent, ready. I turned off the kitchen light and let the night keep its quiet. That was the victory.